Many of you saw Gary Kasparov's reaction after a move he played, but what exactly happened in this game against the best Indian player of all time, Vishwanathan Anand, in 1996? Anand played white and he started the game with e4. We have c5, Sicilian defense, knight f3, Kasparov plays d6, d4, exchange of the pawns on d4, knight f6, knight c3, protecting the pawn on e4, a6, and we have a Najdorf variation of Sicilian defense, which is one of the most popular opening choices for Kasparov at that time. Bishop develops to e3, knight immediately jumps to g4, threatening the bishop on e3, therefore bishop g5 is all theory, h6, bishop retreats to h4, Kasparov attacks the bishop again with g5, bishop retreats again to g3, we have bishop g7, very nice diagonal for that black square bishop, bishop e2 for Anand, threatening to capture the knight on g4, h5 protects that knight, exchange on g4, and f3, and the bishop retreats to d7. All theory so far. Bishop back to f2, knight develops to c6, queen goes to d2, preparing the long castle for white, knight jumps to e5. Here it's important to notice that white cannot take the unprotected pawn on g5, seemingly unprotected pawn on g5, because black would simply play bishop h6, attacking the queen, and let's say if queen goes to g3, h4, attacking the queen again, white would have to take on h4 because there are no other moves by the queen, and after queen takes h4, there would be a discovery attack, check, and next move, white would take the queen. Or, even better continuation, would be knight to g6, and then after queen g3, bishop f4, and trap the queen this way. That would be even better for black. In any case, white would lose the queen. Grandmasters don't make those type of mistakes usually. Therefore, short castle for Anand. g4, immediately starting marching on the king side of the board for Kasparov. f4, challenging the knight, who jumps to c4, attacking the queen. Queen e2, rook c8, b3, and knight jumps to a square a3. Doesn't seem like a good square for the knight, but the knight can always go back to b5 and use all those type of pins along the long diagonal. Knight d5, e6, challenging the knight, and knight goes to b4, which is a mistake on the grandmaster level, and Kasparov had to play knight b5 to continue with a big advantage using the pin on a long diagonal. Instead, he played queen a5, which was a miss by him, queen e1, h4. The attack looks more and more dangerous on the king's side. Bishop e3, h3, h3, and after g3, Anand seems to block the Kasparov's attack on the king's side, and now this position seems to be okay. Now knight b5, rook d1, protecting the knight on d4, and knight c3. Black's position at this point is totally winning. All their pieces are doing great. White squares around the white king are absolutely weak. And after knight c3, knight goes to d3. Here it's important to notice that black cannot take the rook on d1 because they will lose the queen on a5. Therefore, queen retreats to c7, rook goes to c1, and knight goes to a central square e4. Knight takes a2, possible as well, but knight takes e4 takes care of a central pawn of Anand's position, and according to the engines, Kasparov is +3 in this particular moment of the game, which is, again, on grandmaster level, is usually an easy win. f5. Anand starts some counterplay on the king side of the board, e5 and f6. Anand sacrifices the pawn on f6 to activate his knight on a square f5. Exchange of the pieces, minor pieces on a square f5, which is, I should say, a gain for Anand, because with those type of awful light squares around the white king, the light square bishop for black is a very strong piece, and the fact that Anand was able to exchange it for a knight, it's really good for him. But here comes queen c6, attacking, threatening a checkmate on a square g2. White protects that square with the move queen e2, queen e4, attacking the rook retreats to f2, and knight goes to d5. I'm absolutely positive that in this position, Kasparov was already celebrating a win and advancing to the next round of the tournament. Rook e1, and here comes the most crucial moment of the game. Kasparov decided to simplify the game, take the bishop on e3, and his idea was that after logical move queen takes e3, knight takes e3, rook takes e3, f5, this position is totally winning for black, because white have absolutely no answer from this avalanche of pawns that would be marching forward for black. And also the black square, the dark square bishop for black is absolutely a monster piece here. And this is exactly what Kasparov thought would happen. What he didn't anticipate, what he didn't notice, is the next move by Anand. That's exactly what he blundered. Queen takes g4. What a beautiful move. And now the rook on e1 is protected, so the queen cannot take it. It's protected by the knight. The queen on e3 is under attack, and most importantly, the rook on c8 is under attack with a check. And the best move for black here is to sacrifice the queen for a rook. Kasparov castles, protecting the rook on c8. Anand takes the queen on e3, knight takes e3, and we have a position after queen takes h3 and knight takes c2, where white has an extra queen, but it's for a rook, a bishop, and a pawn. So not so easy. White is better, but not having a decisive advantage yet. Queen d7, knight takes d4. Kasparov was absolutely upset here with what happened previously. Makes another blunder, knight d4, and white was easily winning by taking the pawn on f7. Sacrificing the rook for one move. After rook takes f7, queen takes c8 check with absolutely winning position. Anand didn't see it either, and he played queen takes b7, a5, king g2, rook c3. White is still better, but not so clear. Knight b2, knight c2 for Kasparov, and Anand activates his knight on c4, threatening to take the pawn on d6. Kasparov plays d5, still knight d6, and it turns out that the pawn on f7 is under attack by 3 white pieces and cannot be protected. Therefore, knight e3 check, king goes to h3. Here important that white couldn't go back to squares g1 or h1 because they will be checkmated by rook c1. And that's a very nice checkmate with the coordination between the knight and the rook. Anand obviously didn't go for it. He played king h3, f5, queen d7, f4, trying to create some chances on the king side of the board for Kasparov, queen e6 check, king h7, and knight f7. And the idea here is, with the next move, to play knight g5 check, knight g5 check, king would go to h8, and queen goes to g6. and white would checkmate the black king on h7. Let's just quickly take a look. For example, d4, knight g5 check, king h8, queen g6. There is no protection from a checkmate on h7. Therefore, in this position, Kasparov sacrifices the rook for a knight. Knight takes f7, queen takes f7, rook c6, exchange of the pawns on f4, and rook f6, intermediate move, with attacking the queen. Now, important not to blunder a queen with the move queen h5 check, because after rook h6, the queen would be pinned and lost. Anand plays queen c7, e4 for Kasparov, f5, d4. Pawns look kind of dangerous, but nothing special. Knight, queen e7, check from h6, king g3, knight attacking the rook, rook jumps to f4, e3 for Kasparov, and the pawns are not on time, because after rook g4, black cannot protect themselves from a checkmate on a square g7. The bishop is pinned, and the next move would be queen takes g7 checkmate. Yes, they can play rook g3, rook g6, but then after rook takes g6, same thing happens, then checkmate on g7. That's how Anand won this game that he was absolutely losing. That's the game. We got this absolute famous meme, famous reaction by Garry Kasparov that everybody knows by now. If you like the video, please subscribe, drop a comment. Thank you for watching.